Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. It's your host, Travis. Today on the show, we have Gustavo Dantas. He is a 5th degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he is a phenomenal guest. Today, we discuss topics ranging from starting your journey, how it was. He started Jiu-Jitsu in 1989, so things were a little bit different back then. So we talk about how things have progressed from the, late 80s, early 90s to now. We talk about his journey, his mindset about things, how he approaches teaching kids or teaching people, new practitioners. And then we go into his nonprofit called Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. And it is a phenomenal nonprofit. Everything's for the organization to be down in the description below if you guys want to check it out. But he helps out, disenfranchised youth and people in Brazil and in impoverished areas, and teaches them or brings jiu-jitsu to them and gives them kind of like a boys and girls club or a way to help these people get off the streets and to not fall into the trap of drug dealing and a life of crime, and hopefully impact them enough to where they, go the right path with that. So Gustavo is a phenomenal guest. He gives amazing answers to every question and brings an insight that is not felt in a long time, and it's honestly very good. There's like listening to him tell stories about visiting Brazil and the forgotten people of Brazil and whatnot. It really like makes you think, man, one, we're very lucky to live in the United States and have the amenities we do and the things that we do, and then two, it makes you want to help others. It inspires you to want to help others. So if you guys want to check out Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, like I said, everything is going to be down in the description below. $5 recurring payment is a huge help. Gustavo goes into how that helps, and it's just a great conversation. And I love talking to people that are using Jiu-Jitsu to make a difference in people's lives. So if that's something you want to get involved with, check that out down below. Remember, go to elbowstight.com for all your Elbows Tight swag, and then just follow us Elbows Tight everywhere. So thank you guys so much for listening and watching at home, and let me know what you think. All right, peace.
Breaking news. Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right. They are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make sure your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the code ETP20 for 20% off and free shipping. Again, that's ETP20 for 20% off and free shipping.
It's time to tame your mane. No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to the stubble trouble with Manscaped's Pro Beard Kit. My wife hates when I have stubble. She's like, don't even kiss me. Trim that mustache. And thanks Manscaped for making it possible now.
It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut for fixing faces. First off, the cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 haircutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extras and add-ons. That's right. Face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Get 20 different beard lengths in just one guard.
The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 free gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress.
So get 20% off and free shipping with the code ETP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code ETP20. Manscaped Beard Hedger, one stroke, one guard, 20 lengths.
Thanks, Manscaped, for sponsoring this episode. Good morning, Gustavo. How you doing today, man? Thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We were chit-chatting a little bit before, and man, I'm excited to talk about your jiu-jitsu journey, your nonprofit that you have, and all the great work you're doing down in Brazil with the jiu-jitsu and everything like that. But before we get into all that, let's go ahead and jump to a backstory of who you are as a practitioner and how you got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu and whatnot.
Yeah, I started training in 1989, and back when, I think a lot of people have the misconception that everyone knew what jiu-jitsu was in Brazil, and it really wasn't like that. Definitely there was a big boom in 91, at least in Rio, my experience from growing up in Rio. And by 93, definitely the UFC, but not because of the UFC did help, but that was when they had like the first Brazilian nationals. Before CBJJ, they had one, and then actually Robert Drysdale talks about this on his books and stuff, so people have interest in learning more about history. Robert's doing a great job with that, about that competition scene in Brazil. So I kind of grew up around that time, grew up in jiu-jitsu. I was aware of jiu-jitsu for a long time, since my dad trained like early 70s, late 60s for a little bit. And then I didn't grow up with him, but he used to show my brother jiu-jitsu. My brother's 4 years older, so my brother used to say like, oh, I want to start driving, I want to train jiu-jitsu. And I always say like, oh, but whatever the older brother's doing, like, I want to do jiu-jitsu too. So eventually came that time, and my brother in Brazil, you start driving at 18. So my brother started training before, and a few months after I did train judo when I was about 10 or 11. I really enjoyed bad grades. My mom got me out of judo, so it took me a while for me to become like a okay student, and then finally get to train. So when I wanted to go back to judo, then my brother suggested me to jiu-jitsu, and so I took a class and fell in love because I really enjoy judo. And yeah, man, I never stopped. And my brother trained for about maybe like 6 months. He used to have some like issues with lower back and stuff like that, and started doing swimming for therapy, and then ended up getting involved with triathlon. And to this day, he does Ironman, Ultraman. Ultraman is a double Ironman, 24-hour marathon. So basically, he is a triathlon coach too in Portugal. So basically, I went all in jiu-jitsu. He went all in triathlon.
Did you feel that since you were able to start jiu-jitsu, like the other stuff that was stopping you from being able to do jiu-jitsu, like your grades and whatnot, did you feel like it was easier to keep that stuff up because you were like, man, I'm loving jiu-jitsu. I can't give this up. I gotta stay on top of my A game with everything else to continue to train?
I don't think it was necessarily that. Is because in Brazil, the school system is very different than US. And through my journey, I went from being a good student to kind of not becoming one. Long story, but like basically by the time of like when I got in 7th grade, I went from a little weaker school to a stronger one. And in Brazil, it's very different. Like even if you fail like 4 subjects, basically you do the whole school year again, even the ones that you had good grades, So I had to do 7th grade twice. So I felt like for me, it was my kind of wake up call in a way, because I just the way I felt, like other students moving on, and I was doing the 7th grade again, and that's when I really noticed for the first time that I had issues with like basically ADD and then not paying attention. I remember just sitting when I came back, for my 7th grade, I was like, okay, I'm going to sit in the first row. I'm going to pay attention. So I'll sit right in front of the teacher. And I'm like, okay, I am paying attention. And that would last about 10 seconds and I'll be gone.
Right there with you.
And then I started to realize that I started getting frustrated because I'm like, man, I'm really trying, and then I realized that, it took me longer to definitely learn because I consistently space out, and I had to spend more time at home, finding better techniques for me to learn. Plus my mom, got me like with a tutor to help. And then I became like a decent student. I would say more like a C plus, B minus, but like I'm happy with it. It's going well from what it used to be.
Good for me too.
You know what I mean? I was like, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't say that necessarily the jiu-jitsu was for me to get on track. Was for me like, man, I guess I need to put the extra time to work, so I just don't want to do another school year again. You know? So I made a good improvement.
Did you feel like because I have ADHD and my oldest son, he's undiagnosed, but it's if someone that has it can recognize it, you know what I mean? And in class, he'll have a hard time paying attention a lot of the times too. He'll be like wandering off and like looking at things, and then he'll snap back to it, and all those memes of like wait, what did we just what are we what's the technique we're supposed to be doing? How did you overcome that when you first started in your journey?
Honestly, I don't think that I even realized that I had that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I knew that because we're talking like early 90s, right? It's not that it's like some type of like mental health talk or you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I had no clue. I just for the first time realized like, oh wow, I have a lot, I have a hard time paying attention, but I didn't realize how much that interfered my whole life. Growing up, socially speaking, or paying attention, or just being in my own little world, and I never pay attention until I was like an adult, to be honest,
same.
like over my 30s, like that I really realized the damage. I'm like, oh crap, through my personal development journey that I start to understand more, patterns, and got involved with mental coaching, life coaching, all that stuff, just got me more motivated to learn more about therapies and retreats. And I felt that long term that it doesn't end, right? The process, right. The personal development journey doesn't end, but I felt like jiu-jitsu competition in a way, that's what I feel that was that's how I got my introduction to personal development, through like feeling competition anxiety, understand like, okay, I need to get to the bottom of this, why I'm feeling this way. And that I started more like studying for performance. And then that started to get more like, okay, not just my mental, I need to understand my emotional aspect, my spiritual aspect. So it has been a process. Then every year I feel like I learn a little bit, but man, we got so much to learn, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, my mom's is turning 76 this year, and I see how much she grows, and that just gives inspiration for me to see. I'll be 49 this year, and I'm like, dude, I don't know, Jack, in life, I got so much to learn, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's like a perfect metaphor for jiu-jitsu too, right? Like no one knows everything in jiu-jitsu, and it's ever changing and evolving day to day. It feels like, through like people with competition studying so much tape, which is like a great thing nowadays. When you first started jiu-jitsu, how has it changed? I mean, obviously it's changed quite a bit since '89, but what is the biggest difference you've seen since like your white belt days to white belt starting now?
Man, I tell you what, I left a message, exchanging messages with my good friend of mine, Bruno Bastos. He, because he was at the Brazilian National, took his kids to compete, and then I was just talking with him about like how was back in the day. Now I'm watching the thing live on Flow Grappling. Yeah, all mats going, man. Like when we started, like late 80s, early 90s, there's no, at one point they had magazines, right? But they didn't have magazines. I'm not even talking about internet. So I felt like something that really helped the evolution technically, of course, competition, number one, started to like grow more and more and more in the 90s, but internet, the access that people start seeing, like, because when I started, your only source of basically jiu-jitsu, was your teacher. That's it. There's no instructional videos. There's no instructional tapes. It's either you watch whatever you learn in class, or you're in a tournament and you watch and see people like, oh, what are they doing? And then people will be trying stuff like that they saw, or a competitor stood out and did something different that people didn't know, and now people are trying to figure it out at the school. You know what I mean? So by the time you figure it out, this person already came up with a counter for that, for like how to deal with that. And that's kind of like how, all that transformation go. And now, man, there's so many I feel like jiu-jitsu a lot more systematic now because of like the amount of guards were developed, the amount of like guard passing to deal with those complex guards, and I feel that internet for people who, man, you see some countries, sometimes some competitors out of nowhere, it'll be like, man, someone that is obsessed with the process, study a lot, got some good group of friends, you know, and you see guys from different countries really standing out, you know, like when would you imagine that Norway would have like strong competitors like Aspen and Tommy? They've been in my school before a couple of times. They have great jiu-jitsu. And I know their coach, Jose Carlos too, very good competitor, good friend of mine that went there, and there's not much going on. He's one of the very few coaches in the country, long-term, and guys obsessed with learning jiu-jitsu, having access online to matches, to breakdown. So I think the internet was a big push technically for people to have access to positions, and for sure competition. You know, competition will it's just going to push the technique. You know, again, we start having more tournaments. Next thing, someone is doing whatever new technique, a new system. Someone's going to study how to beat that, and then they come with a variation, and you need something to beat that variation, and just goes on and on. So be able to see Brazilian Nationals, for people who don't know, it's 9 days long. And I'm an event promoter, so I know that it's 9 days of a tournament with 8,000 competitors.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it was that big.
Yeah, 8,000. So that dude, Carlos Gracie Jr., he deserves everything he built, because he started from like, you know, I saw at the beginning from the first, I think the first Brazilian National maybe had, I don't even know if they had 4 mats. Maybe 3. I don't remember. I don't think they have 4. And it was maybe like a one day event, maybe 2. I don't remember. Maybe it was 2, but it wasn't as big. And to be able to spread and have the vision, and I've heard many times from people in the early 90s that he would see his vision. They would see like one day, this isn't like early 90s, he's saying like, one day we're going to have jiu-jitsu tournaments all over the world happening at the same time. People would laugh at him, you know what I mean? Think that he's crazy. So for you, do you imagine how much of a visionary you need to be? Like, you in Brazil, people don't even know. They're finding out about jiu-jitsu because of the UFC. And you be able to see that, you know, how much you need to trust what you're doing, your vision, and trusting the art, of course, but trust your entrepreneurial vision to be able to, like, you know what, this is possible. So he deserves, you know, sometimes people who just start training, sometimes like, oh, they just all about money. It's a company. It is what it is. It's a company. And what they've been able to provide to the community, like, all the Brazilians who live, I can say all, but jiu-jitsu related. For example, me, I got my work visa because of the curriculum that I built, because of the resume that I built from IBJJF. You know, so that's how I got. Otherwise, like, how would it be here? You know what I mean? So a lot of the coaches, they're here because, you know, they built it, you know, so it's a combination of the effort of the person that, you know, but someone had to provide the event, you know. And you see the Pan nowadays, it's a massive event too, but people don't remember that he came here in 1995 to do an event for 300 people, not even, between 200 and 300 people at the same arena that they did for many years in California. Do you think he made money? No, they had all the staff, like 6, 8 people sleeping in one room. They made a lot of effort. So people see right now, it's always pretty after everything is big. So it's easy to
Yeah.
just judge and be like, well, do I agree with everything they with the managing of the company? No, but it's not my problem. You know what I mean? Like, so many companies that you like, or people are listening, that maybe sometimes they take a decision that are like, I don't know if I like that. It doesn't mean that they're like, now this company sucks. No, maybe you don't agree with the decision that they made. Do I agree everything with the rules? No. You know what I mean? Do I agree? But overall, man, look how the good that they do for the community. A lot of people don't see that. But for me, being able to see how they started, I had the opportunity to compete at the very first 3 World Championships, 96, 97, 98, and then I moved to the US. But being able to see what was it, same thing. I think they had it for the first World. They had 3 mats, and now to become what, and now not just, people can make, man, different business made because of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Making a living with their passion. Back in the days, because now, if you say like, oh, I want to pursue jiu-jitsu, I want to make a living, I'm like, okay, I want to have a school. But when you're in the 90s, in Brazil, say you're going to make a living in jiu-jitsu was a full love. You do it because you really like, I'm going to become a jiu-jitsu teacher because I'm going to make all kinds of money. Like,
No.
Like, I had my whole family saying like, what is this problem? You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like, what's wrong with him? So, because they're like, how are you going to make money? How are you going to, you're going to make money with medals. You need to get a real job. And I'm like, what is a real job? So people have different perceptions about the meaning of the word success, and back then it wasn't easy, but I trust, and I'm like, man, this is what I wanted to do. And it paid off. It wasn't easy, absolutely, but I make a living with something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I'm jealous because I'm trying to get there too. With
It's a process.
It's a process. Yeah, definitely. What's one of the probably the biggest misconceptions people have when they look back at, like, let's just say, since you started jiu-jitsu, we often hear about jiu-jitsu back in the day. Everyone's like, oh, back when I first started jiu-jitsu. When you first started jiu-jitsu, what's probably one of the biggest misconceptions people have about what it was like back then compared to now?
Well, it wasn't professional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was, especially Fabio Gugel, the leader of Alliance, I think he got a great analogy of saying, like, if you have trained jiu-jitsu in the 90s and you're still involved with jiu-jitsu to this day, you're part of the select group of the survivors. You know what I mean? Because when competition really start pushing, and now we're talking like 93, that at least I felt the shift around jiu-jitsu community, how more schools start to pop out. There's no such a thing as like, here's an intro class. It's like, bring a gi, here's the ocean, go swim with the sharks, good luck. You know what I mean? There's no formal thing. And that was basically like, he's just saying like, all right, we're going to put everyone on this pool of talent per se. Let's see who's going to stay. Let's see who's going to make our team stronger. So as everything was about really competing, and then for a lot of people who are not in that vibe, you're like, dude, I'm just trying to like get my stress out, and you know what I mean? Like, next thing, and you are in a heavy competition team, and you feel like, dude, it's not for me. So a lot of people left. So now you protect a lot more the practitioner, introducing. Of course, each school got their own thing, but my school, we do like an intro class, put them away to work with a coach. So everyone's going to come in, is going to have a first, if it's not a one-on-one, sometimes there's 2 people trying a class, but like, I tell them like, hey, when you're just gonna do this intro, and when you go to join the class, you're still gonna be lost. We're just trying to be less lost. That's all. That's
I've
all.
lost every class too. Like I said before, I've been doing it 5 years. I'm like, I still don't understand all the time.
Yeah, but like anything else in life that you're gonna learn, you gotta go through that process of like the competence, different levels of competency, and at one moment when you think about it, everyone that is listening, like the first phase is you're unconscious and incompetent. That means you're not even are aware of the existence of the thing. So of course you're incompetent because you not even know the existence. And then maybe the second stage is now you're conscious and competent. Maybe you saw UFC or saw something like, oh, what is jiu-jitsu about? Okay, so now I know the existence of jiu-jitsu, but I'm still incompetent because I've never tried. And then the third level is like, okay, now that's when I start deciding, like, now you're conscious and at the moment that you took one class, you start the competency level. So it's like, oh, you mean competent is one class? It's like a spectrum or graphic or whatever you want to see, from 0 to going up high. So you have one class that's better than 0. Now but your competency level, it's just very, very low. Now, there's a book called The Art of Learning. Josh Wainsky. He is it's actually a jiu-jitsu black belt. They have the movie In Search of Bobby Fischer. It's a chess movie. And so he's a chess prodigy and stuff like that. So very cool book. And he talks about how competent would you like to be? Do you want to be like, meh, okay, and whatever you're doing? Like, you want to be okay, good, great, one of the best has ever lived. So whatever you're trying to decide your expectations, that would take more of your time to develop that, until get to a point that you're the fourth stage, that you're unconscious and competent. You're doing things and you're not even realizing that you're doing. Like, at first you're going to do a hip escape and you're like, wait, oh no, my body go that side, until you get to a point that it's you training, there's resistance training, and then someone's passing your guard and you're not thinking, I need to move my hip out. You naturally kind of push and put your hip out. All right. So to get to that point with anything, for anyone that is listening, you go through the process of driving a car. Yeah, from a child until you realize what a car is. And then for the longest time, you're conscious and you're incompetent. You don't know how to drive and know what a car is. And then get to a point that it's like, oh, I'm taking my first lesson. And then you're driving all stiff, looking over your shoulder, and you know what I mean? Like, all conscious of, like, self-conscious of everything, until you get to a point that now you're texting, drinking coffee, and driving around, and, like, unconscious and competent, right? So in jiu-jitsu, it's not different. It takes time. And jiu-jitsu is super complex, you know what I mean? And it's getting even more and more. It's sometimes I joke around with my beginners, saying, like, man, if anyone plays guitar, it's like you're learning how to play guitar. You're trying to strum and play your song, and someone's like smacking your hand the whole time while you're trying to kind of play your song. Like, dude, let me play my song. It's like, you just let me try my moves. And someone's like ripping your grips, So you need to find a way to get around all these roadblocks and traps to play your song. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's not simple. That's for sure. Very frustrating.
Yeah. You mentioned in there that you do a beginner's class. We just recently introduced a 2 times a week beginners class, and some people are for beginners classes, and then obviously some people are against beginner classes. What do you see as the pros and cons of having like an on-ramp or an intro into jiu-jitsu at your academy?
To have the fundamentals.
Do we have fundamentals?
No, you mean for our class with the fundamentals, you mean?
Yeah, with your fundamentals class.
I guess it's going to take. Did I always have that? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And it depends on the school too. Like, what's the schedule like? For example, we had 2 rooms. So Sometimes while the beginner's class is happening, the advanced class is going on the other side, or intermediate class is going on the other side. But it really depends. Can you, how many students do you have? There's in the beginning, sometimes you can't. You got to put everyone together. It is what it is. But if you can add one, I think it's good, because nowadays in my fundamentals class, we don't do like full rolling. We do specifics. You know, okay, start from side, introducing resistance to them slowly, and eventually, or a lot of when you start understanding guard a little more, like, okay, your goal is to pass the guard and the other one defend, and then the other one sweep, move back, but never like full rounds. Everything specific. You learn about the back. Okay, one is trying to finish, the other one's trying to escape. Just slowly, but not a lot. You know, like sometimes 2 rounds of 3 minutes in a position, 2 rounds of 3 in the other one, and that's it. You know, just because we see a lot of people hurting themselves, and not because other people are hurting, they're hurting by themselves. Like a common one that you see, like people pulling a rib, they start spazzing out like, and the next thing they like pull a rib. You know what I mean? And so I need to have always a consistent talk. I mentioned to them, like, I may sound like a broken record, but you know, like trying to tell them the idea, like, slow down. It's a good thing, you know, and try to kind of stay on them. The problem is in jiu-jitsu too, and the first 6 months, man, it's very frustrating for a lot of people, because sometimes you're training 4 or 5, you're being consistent, and you're like, dude, I'm still awful, you know, and I still like, I don't get it. And the problem is, every time you're going to be comparing yourself with someone who's been training longer, it's going to be frustrating. You know, people have been training for 6 months, and they train with someone, or sometimes someone trained about the same time, but maybe they had a little wrestling background, they're a better athlete, or they come more often or whatever. I think the best thing to do is like, well, just focus on your journey. So I always say, mind your business. You know, if you consistently compare yourself to others, you're just gonna drive you crazy, and you're gonna quit. So usually when it's about for people to start making, you know, things start making sense about, you know, maybe it depends each one, but like 6 months, you feel like, okay, I was able to hit a position, you know, like you start seeing a little bit improvement. And sometimes just people cannot take that frustration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it is what it is. But that's, if people usually can break over that hump, you know, the initial, like maybe like 6 months, a lot of the times, not always, but they stop training, or because they got hit with life, you know, and then responsibilities, physically speaking, or injury or whatever, but in the back of their mind, they're like, dude, I like that stuff. You know what I mean? And you're going to have the person that are like, I didn't like, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, people say jiu-jitsu is for everyone, and if we don't make it for everyone, then it's messing up somewhere. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Just like you mentioned, like some people just don't enjoy the physicality of it. They just don't enjoy the process of learning. At your academy, when you bring someone in, how do you approach a new practitioner? Obviously, like you mentioned, you have the fundamentals class, but when they enter the advanced class, or the class with like the Gen Pop, how do you approach that to foster a good environment to make sure that they do want to stay around?
We have an intermediate class as well, so we do our best to kind of jump them from the fundamentals to intermediate.
Gotcha.
You know, depending on the class and their schedule, sometimes we'll have someone that could jump from. It really depends on the student that can jump from fundamentals to advanced, and you say like, this is the only time I can make it, and usually they end up being fine. Like currently with our 10 a.m. class, it's an advanced class, so usually you don't have many white belts, but like the white belts, the few white belts are there. Because that's the only time they can train. They end up picking up like well, because they're working with collar belts. They're reasonable, and they're like helping them, like, yo, when you put your hand here, don't do this, do this. So they consistently taking that little kind of beating in a way. But when they go in a beginner's class and they do a specific, and you see the difference night and day, they're like, oh wow, okay. Actually, I'm not, because I'm always getting my ass kicked here, but by the collar belts, actually, I'm doing pretty decent,
Yeah.
So, I get to a point with everyone, we've even including the collar belts, I'd suggest them like, hey, do not neglect the fundamentals class. Try to come in once a week just to see what's going on. Maybe it's a day that it's a little lighter day because it'll be more, more technique, more drilling, not as much resistance. So that is a good trick. Someone's beat up and then I'm like, man, I want to train, but I don't want to go to war, I just want to have an easy day.
Yeah, I got a 401k to worry about.
Yeah. And then the intermediate, that's when you start kind of trying to develop, the beginning of developing, introducing a game, especially with guard related and, of course, passing and sweeping, playing guard. One of the things that I do a lot in all my classes, there's always a specific training as far as like situational training, because I feel that for skill development, this is the best training that you can have. Like maybe, for example, I introduce a new guard, whatever, and then be like, okay, we're going to play for whatever, 5 minutes. You're only going to be playing this guard, tops, trying to pass, move back, sweep, move back. So the feedback is right away, I mess up this foot here, okay, move back. So because sometimes you learn, let's say a new guard, and you're going to roll whatever 4 times, 5 times, and then sometimes you not even get to the position that you want. So at least that kind of force you a little bit. And I always mention, even that's a good tip for the listeners too, even if it's a specific system that, Gustavo, I hate that, I got no business doing, using that in my game. I was like, okay, but someone may like it and may use against you. So at least you need to understand what is going on. What are the common patterns of this specific system? What are the ways in and out? So if people are using that against you, at least you have an idea what is going on. So do I use every move that I know? Do I use every guard that I'm like? Absolutely not. Yeah. But especially being an instructor, I need to be aware of what's going on. I'll play around with certain positions. Because, for example, I'm not a half guard person at all. I have long legs. Like somewhat flexible, so meaning people need to close the distance with me. So I don't want to give that to them with a half guard. It doesn't mean that it's bad, but for the way I play, I don't like playing half guard. I put myself in half guard, yes, with the specifics, and I'll do, when I just feel like I want to play for fun. But like I tell people that, hey, if you see me playing half guard in a tournament, probably something went south, something went bad, and they're like, oh wow, Gustavo's playing half guard. Like, by the way, it wasn't by choice. Someone got here to my half guard.
There's an alarm ringing somewhere that something's wrong.
Yeah. So that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. You can custom made your playbook. You know what I mean? Of like what fits your style or your body type, your preference, and there are. I honestly, I cannot keep up with the amount of like guards that out there. I can't. It is overwhelming if you've tried to. Especially now, there's so many. Again, internet, so much stuff. There are a lot of a lot of people putting content online. A lot of people that got no business in putting content, and then there's people who are one of the best people in the world. They're very good instructors. And then I'm like, dude, there is so much, and that is. Want to kind of wait for some of the beginners that get too excited about what's going on YouTube and all other courses and end up getting mediocre in a bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? Instead of like, hey, develop this here, feel pretty good, especially, it's always the broken record, like the fundamentals, which is true, and then slowly too soon, too many people trying to do lapels and more complicated guards without having a very good foundation, and they end up memorizing certain games. And this is kind of like the downside of having so much information now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask next is with we mentioned the internet really escalating jiu-jitsu and how people learn. It also has I always tell people, when you're first starting jiu-jitsu, if your mind is hungry, you should feed it. Yes. Like, don't, be curious, look at these things, right? But be careful who you're watching and what you're watching, right? Because like in my head, I'm sure you can attest to this too. My head most of the time can barely remember exactly what's going on in class. And if I start putting, useful information that I'm not going to use in class in my brain, then I'm like pushing out other things that I probably should be working on.
Sure.
You know what I mean? How do you approach your students that, they want to learn, they want to, outsource, they want to get an instructional, they want to, Instagram, YouTube. How do you approach them to make sure that, you're like, hey, you can do it, but, X, Y, and Z. How does that conversation happen with you?
Well, with our advanced class, we do our advanced is not like a set curriculum.
Okay.
Because it's consistently developing. So we go like, because it's so much information. There's so many different systems. So there are topics that I stay on them for, could be 2 weeks from 2 months. It depends. If you're going to, if you work 2 months on De La Riva, a lot of like top and bottom, still not enough. You know what I mean? For like the amount of information, it's good to develop some good knowledge, but it's just so much. So I feel like I don't pick up stuff as fast. So usually I stay a little longer on topics. Like right now, we're in the same topic going in maybe for maybe the fourth week, and I feel like playing with the cross sleeve and stuff like that, and just giving a lot of options from bottom and how to deal with those positions, and dealing now focus a lot on bottom, let him do the stuff, try to let people figure out what to do on top, and then I start showing top and then how to deal with this. So probably maybe even at least 2 more weeks, just giving time. Now, if someone wants to study and you would say hey, work on the topic that the teachers are working.
Yeah.
And now, if you feel like there's something that you're curious, you want to learn about it too, I mean, you can work on 2 systems, depending on your experience, how much information you can take. But if you have work on the system that our program is using at that specific month, and you want to do something that it's either take advantage to study the topic that we're doing, or if you really have been on this kick of a specific situation or whatever, go ahead and use an open mat, you know what I mean, stuff to do. Maybe try, if you're not related, something completely different, you know what I mean. It could be not just because the reason why I mentioned people why specifics are so important. If you, I don't know, just no study or anything. I'm just throwing numbers at you, but the 80-20. But if you think about it, of course, it depends on the level of your training partner. But at least 80% of the time, when you're training jiu-jitsu and people are about the same level, you're either playing guard or trying to pass a guard. The other 20% are okay, side mount, mount or back. And there's times that it's 100%, depending on your partner, passing and playing guard.
Yeah.
The whole time. So as far as, like I said, skill development, this I feel that that's why specifics are so important. Of course, you need to have to learn how to put them together. But to learn how to play a guard doesn't work, move back. Because sometimes, again, in the middle of training, people get oh, if I try this here, it's going to pass. If I pass, I'm going to be stuck in a side mount. I'm just going to be here and then not try. And when you do specific, you at least you have that relief that are like, okay, if it doesn't work, like we're just gonna get back and work it again. So let's give it a try. Let's make it. So I always tell them like, guys, this is the time to make the mistake. You know what I mean? This is the time. See, like the feedback, it's like it's automatic right there. So that's why I'm always one normal training that we do like often in my classes is sometimes could be, okay, be 2 rounds of 6 minutes. I'm responsible for pulling guard. You're responsible for get a takedown. So one person already know like, okay, you're the one's going to be playing guard. So start from your feet. So you need to get to the system that you want to play from your feet. If your partner take you down, you keep going. If your partner pass or you sweep or submit, go back on your feet. Fist bump, boom, and go again. Working on getting into a situation. And there will be times they'll be like, hey, pick a system that a guard that you want to play. This one, start from there. You know what I mean? And then same thing, try to pass, try to sweep. And the one that I like to surprise people, say like, get to the guard that you really want to play. Is it exactly this? When everyone is exactly in position, say like, okay, now release and flip. Put on the other side. If you're controlling the left leg, control the right leg, and everyone start laughing, because some people be like, oh, dude, I never tried to the side. You know what I mean? So that throws you off because you don't want to get in a situation that suddenly there are certain positions that you can choose. Like exactly. There's times that someone's going to put you in a situation, whether you like or you don't. Now you're dealing with that approach. And I was like, oh, I'm not that used to, when this leg is forward or that controlling this angle. To a certain degree, I think most people have a little favorite side to kind of lean to it. So I have guards that I'm very efficient both sides. There's some that I'm better one side than the others. You know what I mean? So that's normal, which is impressive when you see people that can, no matter where they land, they're fine with whatever guard, whatever passing. So this is my suggestion for the listeners. I wish someone had told me this many, many years ago, but especially regarding passing, if you always pass with the right leg forward, you know what I mean? Start practicing leading with your left, or if you do, or vice versa, because I used to be so like, okay, I lead with my right leg, and now I'm just blasting one side over and over and over. And then over the years, start to get better. And I felt like only in my black belt that I started to really develop that. And again, different times, different approaches a long time ago. But now, often I go, because I got to be ready. Someone's blasting one side, you got to be able to go to the other side, and you see this with like incredible competitors, the best passers in the business, like Lucas Lepre. That dude is amazing both sides. Incredible. Passing pressure, incredible. Like Taina, incredible, both sides. So you don't want to get tunnel vision and just get hooked. But to do that, we do need to practice that. You do need to put yourself in that situation of leading that. Or maybe the guard that you play, usually you decide that you feel comfortable. Try to lean to the other side. Try to flip your grips, So it's kind of awkward, but that's if you get caught in that situation, it's not something you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Sometimes people are just going to fight like crazy to lean back to the side that they like. Yeah. But there's times that you won't be able to, and you better have an answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I when we do technique, I'll be like my jiu-jitsu and non-jiu-jitsu side, you know what I mean? Like the side that I don't typically go. But honestly, I feel like when I practice my non-dominant side in a move, I focus so much more because it's like so unnatural to me. And a lot of times my buddies are like, well, that was actually better pressure, or it felt smoother, because I'm like so hyper-focused on every single step because I don't typically go that way. And it's still hard to like convince myself to do that, right? Because I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, you know what? Stop me going my good side. You know what I mean? Like, stop me from going the good side, and then I'll have to go to the other side. But if you don't stop me, then then why would I not? But it's definitely, I agree. Drilling both sides from the beginning, I wish I would have focused a little bit more on, because I would imagine, obviously, hindsight 2020, I would be a much better practitioner now than I am. But
Yeah, I
it's
tell
one of those
people,
things.
for example, takedowns, like let's say judo takedowns. I'll say like whatever, whatever throw, maybe like a osorogari or whatever, like a basic sweep, like leg sweep. So I don't think I ever drill, grabbing with my left on a collar, right on the sleeve, because that one I'm choosing what route I want to go on that way. You know what I mean? No one's forcing me to grab it with the left. So if I'm fighting, if I'm getting there, it's because I wanted to grab for that specific position. But it's different when you're playing guard. Someone flips your hip, you're like, I'm playing to the side that I didn't really want to.
Yeah.
Now on your feet, you go by your choice. You want to put this leg forward? Okay, you want to put this leg forward. You want to reach the collar, the left or the right. You choose. No one's forcing you to grab anything. You gotta roll with it. But now on the ground, they can definitely put in. Not that you cannot on your feet, but for sure, it's not in the ground. You're gonna see people like, and that's a tip too for people who maybe don't pay much attention to it. When you start training and your partner pull guard and they lean to one side, get a day to just focus on attacking weak side. Maybe it's weak side, maybe it's not. But if they leaning to the right, let me focus on try to put him leading. Might have to switch your leg stance. Let's try to pass to the other side. Either they going to accept and then okay, they turn and they start playing, or they're going to fight, kick, and scream to be on their favorite side.
Yeah.
So when they do that, they're like, they don't like this side. So that's a good way for you to start, a good trigger for you to start attacking like a possible weak side.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump into your nonprofit that you have. Man, I absolutely love it. And probably one of my favorite things is called Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, right?
Yes, sir.
And one of my favorite things that I enjoy about what you're doing is you are showing real life, where's the money going? What are we doing? How are you helping these people through the organization? Can you go into a little bit of like what Jiu-Jitsu Tribe is and what your mission is?
Yeah, for people who never heard, there's not many non-profit related to jiu-jitsu, let's say even here in US, but I started in 2010. This is something that I always wanted to do. I felt like in Brazil, like, man, I'd love to have a social project, or we're not. And when I moved to the US, I knew that I knew that I was going to get involved with social work. I just didn't know how. And to officially, so established in 2010. And we start helping with, basically the idea is the mission is aligned with my life mission, that is to inspire people, impact people, and improving their lives, utilizing jiu-jitsu as a personal and social development tool, and in impoverished communities, especially areas that people cannot afford, they don't have access. And one of the questions that I have, and I always talk with people if I'm doing a presentation or something, and something for you, the listener, to reflect is, and a question for you too, do you believe the world would be a better place if more people train jiu-jitsu? And when you think about it, start reflecting like, yeah, most likely, yeah, when you look at all the benefits that jiu-jitsu bring people's life, be like, for sure, man, yeah, it would be a better place. However, not everyone have access to it or can afford it, and that's when the organization comes in. In the U.S., we only have one program that will help, because it's been for about 10 years. It happens to be lucky that it happens to be in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, higher ground. Jensen does an incredible job. He was able to put jiu-jitsu in a school district in Tucson and doing an amazing job. The university, the U of A, they did like a study of with kids that got in trouble, like juvenile, they got in trouble with the law or behavior and stuff like that, and they started training jiu-jitsu, and then how much they improved. So their view is the same thing that we believe. Jiu-Jitsu is an incredible way as a therapy, you know what I mean? Like helping a lot of those kids. But we should think more about prevention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like introducing that first, so minimize bullying situation, or someone bullying someone and because of jiu-jitsu. So we have two approaches with the organization. One is the mental health. That is, currently we only have this in Arizona. I would love to expand, but 3 years ago, we started a pilot. We did a partnership with this behavior center called Brazilian Health. So basically, kids with anxiety disorder, depression, and they already work with a mentor. And the idea is to implement jiu-jitsu part of their kind of treatment per se. So I did it at my school, so the pilot went well. We probably did it with a good, like, between 15 and 20 kids. But the problem is this specific center is about 45 minutes away. So the logistics was kind of an issue. And for people who don't know, I've been promoting tournaments for 25 years. And I'm the owner of the Arizona Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu League. So I started to do this partnership with Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, that reaching out, like the center, to tell us like, hey, we have a 12-year-old, this and that, tell the story. They live this area here. Is there any school that want to get involved? So we got a bunch of schools in the Valley who are doing this 6 months program sponsorship. They provide the gi and they come to class. So in 3 months, they check in, make sure that they're enjoying, everything's okay. The mentor is in contact with the school. And after 6 months, reevaluate and see, like, do I want to renew? Are they still working with the organization? It's like introducing jiu-jitsu to them. And man, it was incredible to see, like, the changes, that I really, everyone that is listening to this, have practiced jiu-jitsu. I guarantee, it's tough for me to guarantee, but longer you've been training jiu-jitsu, that you're going to have one person that you've seen a transformation. A kid, adult, or something like, dude, that guy, he wasn't saying anything. Now he's, it's talking more like a child or whatever. So I was looking into, especially, and we're using as therapy, but the same idea, try to use as prevention. I was, so when I do some seminars, I do some presentations about Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, and I was doing some study about the past 20 years. I think there are about like 4,000 kids under 12 years old that kill themselves. And they get, so I was reading like 12 cases, so all of them bullying related, all of them, and some of them with sexuality related to. They had one little kid, she hung herself, 6 years old, that have kids telling her, you should kill yourself. You know what I mean? So 6 years old. So that is an example of prevention of a kid to be able to step up for himself. You know what I mean? Maybe like, hey, no. And then someone touch him, they'd be able to defend themselves. So that is our mental health approach. So I'd love to, when they get to a point that, okay, we'll do a partnership with someone, it doesn't matter, in Dallas. And then now I'm talking about like a behavior center that believes in jiu-jitsu too, because some people are going to think liability, they don't know much and they don't know about it, like, oh no, I don't know about that stuff, so they might be kind of skeptical at first. But this is one approach, the mental health and kind of more of the therapy. And the second approach is social project sustainability, so helping with even giving mats or gis, constructions, so we've done a lot of different things to help. And a big one that we start to focus in the past few years, and we have a program called Adopt a Social Project to pay the coach, because all those coaches are volunteers. So many programs, including in U.S., for people who have started teaching for free, there's one point they say like, dude, I need to get another job, or I need to do, and then the program ends. So one of our main, because in the beginning, we used to support like paying entry fee for tournaments, which is great. Tournaments are a great tool also. However, if there's no structure there, there's no sustainability, there's no program, there's no tournament. So we decided to kind of cut off, whatever I do with tournament related is more like in a personal level. But the organization, not really. However, this year we started a personal development institute in Brazil, in the south of Brazil, in a state called Rio Grande do Sul, and a social project that I've been helping for a long time. And I always wanted to have some type of institute like that you teach social emotional learning, financial education, basically stuff that you don't learn in school, right? And preparing teenagers for the market, and having jiu-jitsu as their PE program. So we started the process in January. So right now, we're just on the legal aspect, all the paperwork and everything that helps to apply for grants and so forth. So the jiu-jitsu is happening. You have a little warehouse just for the jiu-jitsu, but now we're preparing to rent a house that are going to have the rooms to actually have classes, like English classes and so forth. So this is one way that the institute, so we have the institute that helps other organizations, but now we put in focus on having like one main program that we help be able to bring some students to travel internationally, to like especially making the connection with my events, opportunity to see the world, and that it's a huge impact. Imagine if you just don't have anything and you just live in the favelas and in shootings and all that kind of stuff, and you get exposed, man, it changes, it does something to you. So we'll have multiple stories like that. So right now, so one of the things that I'm doing, I'm starting to get involved in promoting tournaments in Brazil for dedicated to social projects. So that's pretty cool. We're going to have our first Jiu-Jitsu Tribe Cup July 2nd. So I'm going back to Brazil next month. And great organization, a lot cheaper entry fee. They have a nice lunch, nice lunch that are paid for. So, and whatever it's extra, whatever money that is actually profit is just basically back in the institute to keep providing, and not just the institute, but helping other organizations in Brazil too.
It's during that whole explanation, what struck me the most is when you mentioned Carlos Gracie Jr. earlier and how he was such a visionary, and people were calling him crazy for what he was seeing and whatnot. And to hear you now making such a huge impact with kids in unfortunate situations and low income areas and whatnot, did you ever think that you would be in the position you are now to make such a big impact on so many lives through jiu-jitsu?
No, and honestly, sometimes I don't even realize. People mention, and I don't know, sometimes I'm extremely naive, about that. But I get to travel and go there and see the places, and I think as you get older, start to develop, and just more and more the need of helping more, doing something, and especially coming from Brazil. And I'll tell you what, and this is not just Brazil, but especially since I travel there often to see the projects. I don't talk about getting involved with politics or whatever, but man, politicians are not concerned about poor people. You know what I mean?
What?
Dude, sorry about the breaking news. But I go to places and I'm like, dude, these people are freaking forgotten.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere, places that have been with awful floods, how they bounce back, the community together. The government don't even go there hey, you guys deal with it. You know what I mean? Dude, so, but even in the U.S., you have rough areas in the United States too. Everywhere, of course, you can compare Brazil with United States. But dude, there's a lot of poverty in the United States too, and a lot of people just forgotten. that's for sure. So I feel jiu-jitsu, it's a great tool, and it could be other sports too. You see, like, I had 2 main takeaways. I was in Brazil in February shooting like some doc series. Actually, the first one should be coming out maybe sometime next week. Just visiting some of those favelas, some of the slums, and seeing the impact of jiu-jitsu in impoverished communities with different topics and so forth. And I saw I was there for like just 7 days. But there was like intense 7 days because each day I'm shooting, going to a place. And then I was like, number one, Brazil's screwed. The politicians are like, the places that we're at, like, dude, no garbage truck comes here. We're on the top of the hill. They don't care. You know what I mean? And 2 was that like about how much like the poor people are fully forgotten. And again, this is worldwide, and I don't know what Brazil or even in other countries across the world, including U.S. too, but again, the United States being a first world country, but like the importance of nonprofit organizations in those areas, man, there's some incredible soul saving lives, like no BS, like straight up. They are literally saving lives. And now we're working on editing this visit, but like in a rural area in Rio, completely forgotten. And there's a kid, there's 11 years old, tried to kill himself, the whole story. And then I interviewed the mom, and I asked the mom, like, because the son already done some work with psychologists or whatever, all that stuff, and nothing really kind of gets him going. And they got access to jiu-jitsu, one of the programs that we're actually giving geese to them too. I said, how long did it take for you to see the improvement? And she goes, because now she's training for the past, this was in February, it was 3 months. And she said like 3 days. Oh, wow. So I've seen the interest, because it's not just the jiu-jitsu, but is the environment that they created, which is like, there are about 100 families that are registered in the program. And the lady, Aline, her husband is actually a UFC fighter. We met in one of the UFCs, years ago. I got involved with managing MMA for a little bit, and we developed a relationship. And she knows everyone's name and everyone's story, So in a place that all the kids, they really feel accepted. There's no bullying. There's no, you know what I mean? Like So this kid walks 1 hour and a half to arrive to this place. He walks in a dirt road for 1 hour and a half to train jiu-jitsu. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
When there's no way for you to be exposed to some of those, visits that I go there and I see and not touch you in a way of like, dude, some people are complaining they need to hop in a car for like 15 minutes. Like, oh God, I need to drive. And then this kid is walking an hour and a half. He's 12 years old, so it's like, so it's incredible to see, because there's so many. When you did this documentary, like right now, this one that's coming out is related to like drug trafficking and drug addiction. So it's drugs related, and how jiu-jitsu able to, and let's talk about especially drug trafficking in Brazil. It's not just this little middle class, like little drug dealer. No, we're talking about like straight up gangster, like it's like a bad. And so that was the day was focused on that. And then one day we focused on this day, the one with this kid that tried to kill himself was mental health related. One day was special needs. One day was competition, kind of like the power of competition. There is one girl, the current number 1 female competitor in the IBJJF circuit. Her name is Gabriele Peçanha. She's been winning double gold in all the tournaments, worlds, Pans, Europeans. She's what, 21 maybe? I don't know. She's incredible. And she's from City of God. and one of the programs that we've been helping for a while too. Now they have a great partnership going on. But man, that girl started training at 12 years old in a favela, and then this girl now supports her whole family. You know what I mean? Because of jiu-jitsu. Travel around the world because of jiu-jitsu. So that is a big difference in between. There's so many good instructors, dude, in the United States now. There's incredible high-level ones, right? You're going to see more foreigners kind of standing out for sure. But one thing, man, that Brazil has and the United States, for the most part, don't have is that necessity is a hell of a motivation. You know what I mean? When you're like, yo, dude, either you be good at jiu-jitsu or that's it. I don't know what else to tell you. You know what I mean? Or either you're going to deal drugs here. You're not going to get out of the favela. You know what I mean? You're probably not going to get a good education. Chances are. So when they really bank on like, okay, I'm really taking, so of course they have good instruction, but they have the extra grind of like, this is how I'm going to really eat and support my family. That is an extra push that unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, in the United States, someone can be a competitor, boom, is awesome, and get to a point that, okay, I want to get a job, and then you can get a job in Brazil. It's not that simple. Oh, I'll just go and rent a place and get a job and start my life. That is not like that at all. That's one of the reasons, especially in South America, people stay home a lot later than U.S. Here in U.S., you finish high school, many parents are like, yo, you got to pack, dude. Peace. You got to go. And in Brazil, it's not that simple, man. It's not. The minimum wage is just, if you're lucky, you're going to have to go to a favela way, way up there, you know what I mean, to barely survive. And it's just not I don't know how they make it. I really don't know. The way things are expensive and people with multiple family and minimum wage that I'm talking about, $250 per month. You know what I mean? I'm like, I really don't know. Like, they're magicians. I don't know how they make it, So having that opportunity of introducing a sport, it happens to be jiu-jitsu. They have different things. They have art. They have dance. They have a lot of different activities, a lot of the programs. It's just the main thing because it's so tempting for those kids to get involved in drug dealing. They do have a career path for them. So they don't have to do much. And just to be, just being a watcher, just to let them know if the cops are coming, you start with a kite or with a whistle or whatever, you're going to make more money than mom and dad together without carrying anything. And that's how they catch them first, so how they hook them first. Next thing, you start carrying, delivering. Now you're dealing, so they have like different phases. And one of the guys that I interview, he was one of the local leaders of the community, and he started training jiu-jitsu as a kid, so he would kind of go back and forth, until he got to a point that he was able to get out because of jiu-jitsu, and it's not an easy thing to get out because usually it's not much accept. It's not like, oh, I want to stop dealing. And many times you need to leave the neighborhood, you need to bounce because they don't have good acceptance to that. They kind of tolerate, those social workers, those jiu-jitsu instructors, kind of like they tolerate because they know they're doing good, but kind of like, hey, you kind of hurting our business here too. You're taking the kids from us, So it's a very thin, dangerous line.
How do you... I mean, you talk a lot about like mental training and whatnot and mental coaching. How do you keep yourself level-headed and not let it get to you seeing these situations when you go back to Brazil and you're like, man, this kid's walking an hour and a half just to train jiu-jitsu. Like, how do you like tell yourself, like don't let it get to you. You're doing something good. Just stay motivated. Keep pushing. Like, how does that conversation with yourself go?
Dude, I tell you what, like, for example, this last trip was, and I had one in December too, it's very emotionally draining. Like,
bet.
usually I don't sleep that much in a flight. And like one of my last trips to Brazil, literally I sat, and then before I just kind of woke up. The plane was taking off, and I woke up in Miami or whatever. Like, I passed out for like 10 hours, just being emotionally drained. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't sleeping much because all day doing stuff, and then when you get home, you hit the bed. I mean, yeah, your brain's spinning, and then I woke up and like, oh crap, like I need more sleep, and then boom, it go again. So a week of that, and as tough as Browse, the gi company. I know the owner Renato. He's one of our supporters, so they do an incredible job with the Browse Foundation in Pakistan. And we're talking about this, like basically what you mentioned. It kind of messes with you for a few days, but you come back with like inspired to do more, not to do less. Even though I see like, dude, they're screwed. Period. Like some of the places I go, like I don't think they even know that these people exist. And and especially Brazil, the corruption, South America, Central America. If people think the United States is corrupt, every country has your level of corruption. You know what I mean? But like when it talks South and Central America, dude, ooh-wee, it's rough. It's very tough, and they don't care. So, being able to, I just feel like more and more every year, and as I get older, I don't know. I just feel my heart just kind of like I need to do more, and we want to do more here locally too in the United States. But we don't have as many social projects, of course, but we can do those partnerships, or those centers are awesome. Plus, like you have, this one in Tucson, which is incredible. Help them with like one of my tournaments, and was sponsor, my tournament go, it does a partnership, so they don't pay for registrations. So we send geese. Sometimes I've done gi drives and send geese to them. They do incredible job, incredible. But I can have more programs like that with other sports. Jiu-Jitsu is one of them, but I feel like I kind of created a little, how can I say, a little scale in a way. I feel like when you start talking about social work, if you think there's a level of, you do a donation, which is awesome. Someone donated. It doesn't matter. We donated like $5. You donated. You're helping. And then the next level is you donate with your time. Because money, even though you can give like a lot of money, but man, donating your time, it's huge. And then there's another level. A big step up is someone that starts a program like a social project. I'm going to teach Jiu-Jitsu for free, or I'm going to teach music for free for kids or whatever. So this is already like a different level of commitment. You're running a program. And then the next one I like to call the unicorns, because they are the community leaders. Not only he takes care of his own little program, but he takes care of that program across the street and the other one. So he's like trying to help anyone that is involved in a good thing. They trying to do not just for their own place, and the evolution of this unicorn I see as the social entrepreneur, someone that they create everything that they're making is to put it back into a program to create their own sustainability, to keep serving and not always running, because that's the biggest challenge for the organizations. Sustainability. Consistently be looking for donors, consistently be trying, that's a struggle for us to have money. Like I do jiu-jitsu seminars. So I was on the road for 3 weekends in a row. Virginia, Nevada, and North Carolina. 3 weekends in a row raising money for the organization. So with this money, we can go and provide gis or help with other things. But it's so much that I can travel, so I need to find like different ways to raise money, partnerships, with companies or donors or whatever. So it's a big challenge, not just for us, for any nonprofit organization. And I always tell, like, if you're listening to this, it's not like, hey, donate to us. No, dude, donate to a nonprofit that you relate, that you believe in the mission. $5. If 500 people give $5, dude, that's good. You know, I support Charity Water. If people have more interest, take a look at charitywater.org. I'd rather Scott, I forgot his last name right now. He wrote a book called Thirst. So it's all about they providing water, and that's Browse Foundation's involved with that too. They do that work, you know, through Charity Water. But there are places like people don't have water, dude. That's wild. They don't have clean water, and you see the glass that they're drinking, like, oh my God, you know. So they do an incredible job, and I donate $30 per month, and I've been doing for like almost 5 years. $30, not gonna cut my arms, and for the mission that they have, the incredible, great, and I learn a lot of stuff, like watching them bringing stuff to our organization from what we're learning. What are they doing? And it's incredible work. So my suggestion is, like, dude, support a organization. Like, I can't afford, like, come on, dude, everyone can give like $5.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I'm not saying it needs to be that much. Some people can do more, some people less, but like $5, you know, like, and I'm not saying just on recurring payments, because this is important too. Organizations need to have their, and in order to serve, you know, well, yeah, they need more money, you know, to give more money. We definitely need to raise more money. So it's a challenge, and we have a few different routes that we use, like the Adopt a Social Project program, which is something that we do for business owners, even individuals or academies, associations, or whatever, that we have a list. Actually, there's a list back here with the programs that we work on, and they have a monthly, it's actually for the Adopt Social Project, it's $300. Some people say, oh my God, that's way too much money. Okay, but it depends what is much money for you. But if you put a jar in a school, in your academy, and say, like, yo, we're supporting the social projects, you know, and then we kind of keep in contact so people know, you know, like, you're in contact with the project as well. And every month we send $300. Whoever wants to come in at the end of the month, you know, just tip in whatever you want, $1, coins, or whatever. And at the end of the month, you know, if you didn't reach the 300, you know, the academy puts the difference. That could be an option, you know what I mean? But that's something that is totally doable. Now we have, for people who don't know, we talked before recording, we have this partnership with Browse. They give us a good price, a good deal. And we do 3 batches a year. We just finished our first one. Very cool gi too from Browse. It's not just like, it's actually a Browse gi. And for every gi purchased, one gi is actually produced for a social project, you know. So right now we did some extra once the organization, man, we basically clean up our account to make a first round of geese to give the geese. Plus we didn't sell that many because it's new. A lot of people don't know about it. So now people are like, oh, can I buy it? It's like, well, we're going to have our next shipment. So if you guys want, you can jump in. And so we just start sending the geese out. We're recording this now beginning of May. So we start passing them out. And we'll be arriving in Brazil in about 2 weeks and start showing people like, yo, these are the people. We sent 150 geese, but for this batch, I think we sold like close to 50, which is cool. That's 50 geese that, you know, the person who donated can see like, oh, wow, that's because of me that, and have others that we put the money, and there's some of the donors that actually purchase. And we put 2 for a tax write-off, and that people can use and don't buy, because, yeah, you're buying something, but it is a donation, you know, so that's, you know, something that people can take advantage if they want.
Yeah, man, I absolutely love the organization. I love your mission and what you're doing for people. And like I mentioned before too, I love that, you know, you put out there what you're doing and showing where, you know, these kids are and their journey along with how you're helping them. And I think that makes a big difference, especially in today's social media age where anyone can start a nonprofit. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this to help these people. And then you don't really ever see the tangible evidence of what's going on with them. So I really appreciate, and I'm sure people at home will really appreciate. If you haven't looked at their Instagram, you guys definitely should.
Yeah, it's in Brazil especially, people are super skeptical about nonprofits, which sucks.
Yeah.
Because you have like bad people doing bad things everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Taking advantage like everywhere. Like finding a way to scam people here and there. There's everywhere in the world. But I always mention to my friends a lot about Jesus Christ, Brazil is different. They take it to another level. God damn it. Dude. Like some guys, they always they have like a lot of like inside jokes between Brazilians, and one of them is Brazilians are creative. So they always, say like when you see some of like the scams that they have, and they always joke around like, man, I wish, they use their creativity for the good. It'd be like, how did he come up with this? You know what I mean? Like, so Brazil has got to be one of the top like scam artists in the world. And they got to come from Brazil. It's incredible. Like, how the hell did he think about that? There's some of the things we always say, like, just in Brazil, some of the things you hear, like, no way, but you have like bad people. So now transparency, it's important for people to feel comfortable, that it's actually going somewhere.
Well, we like to end every show with, if you could give one piece of advice to a brand new practitioner in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what would it be?
To mind your own business, to focus on your own journey. I know, especially in the Instagram days, that everyone looks awesome on Instagram, and how come this guy really got promoted, or this person won a tournament or whatever. I talk about what is his name, Dan Sullivan. I think it's Dan Sullivan. He's a strategic coach from Canada, I believe. So he got a very thin book. It's more a theory that he has, but he has a very thin book, about the gain and the gap. That fits really well, like especially your beginning of the journey in jiu-jitsu. He talks about sometimes feels like you walking in the desert and you see like the sun or the sunset or whatever you see, and you start walking towards, like, I'm getting there, and then you're like, dude, I keep walking, I just don't get there. I cannot get there. So now I start getting frustrated because you're focusing on that gap in between where you are and where you think you should be. And the white belts, they start training, they see people moving really well, or maybe someone that maybe they've been training, not as long as they have, and they keep looking to the horizon and seeing like, what's wrong with me? Like, how come I cannot get there? But they forget about to focus on the gain, meaning like, dude, look how far you walked. You know what I mean? The best comparison for all the white belts there, and that it's kind of like a joke I do with some of the beginners, especially when they kind of like, they go through like, or not even hit a plateau. It's just like, I just don't know what to do. Like, I've been training and it'll get better. And then sometimes 3 months, and I go like, hey, if you had a match of you right now against you, day one, the day that you came here for your intro class, who would win? So they always joke, they always laugh, because be like, now my old me would have a chance. Of like, exactly, that is the point. That is like the gain. That's where you need to focus. You can, if you focus, and then next thing, you transfer this to your life, and then you buy a house, but the neighbor's house is bigger. He had a nicer ride than yours, and then you go to a different neighborhood and you buy another house, but in that house there's another house that is bigger, and then someone's more financially successful, or they have a better car. So now you always like in search of the happiness, you know what I mean, or that is you just never gonna reach, instead of like, dude, look where I'm living. You know what I mean? I used to live with my parents, or I used to live in a like a messed up place or whatever. Look where I'm at. Maybe you're not where you think you should be, You know what I mean? Like down horizon, and it should be this and that. Easier said than done. But like I said, in the social media days, it's challenging. A lot of people, they look cool. I'm like, man, this guy's traveling all over the world. Wow, they don't know about his credit card. That, like, so you don't know, everything looks, and that's why, you see more and more, like depression in teenagers, of like, look how many followers, how come I don't have as many followers? They have liked, this person didn't like, all that stuff. I'm very glad in a way. I didn't grow up with social media. You know what I mean? It was a different time, and there's no such a thing. First time I saw a cell phone, I was like, whoa, it's a cell phone. Like the brick Corolla, looks like a brick.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, look at that thing. That's incredible. So, but now it's just so insane. But anyway, my tip is just mind your business, not only in jiu-jitsu, but so many lessons, right, that you have in jiu-jitsu that you apply, personal, professional. This is one of them. Mind your business, focus on improving, and hopefully, like every day is a little better, 1% better.
That's a great point, man. Hey, so if people want to follow you and see what you're doing with your nonprofit and follow you on social media, where can they find you at?
Just go to Instagram, Gustavo Dantas BJJ. I have like a link tree there with, a bunch of stuff that I do, from academy to events to podcasts. Sometimes I do a little way too much, so I've been trying to cut down with time, but that's when my ADD takes over, and then my plate is full, and like, nice, my plate's full. Let me get a bigger plate so we can put more stuff in, But, so we can get most information on my Instagram, and a little bit of everything I do there. And Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, at jiujitsutribe.org, as I mentioned, next month going to Brazil again, spending about a week there, visiting some new places, do the tournament, see the potential place that we are actually having the classes for the Institute. So that's what really makes me happy. I like to go to Brazil and go to nice places, sure, but it's just something that with me that I love going there and seeing the not so good places too. You know what I mean? And see the reality. And I feel like, even though as messed up with the scenarios that I see, in a way I feel recharged when I go back, not depleted. You know what I mean? I might be exhausted for, like initially getting just hit with that reality. It's nothing new, but every time you get to go to some of those places, I go in, the drug dealers, the cartel needs to be notified. They need to allow us to go inside. They need to allow us to record. You know what I mean? So I'm walking around, and there's like the drug dealers like packing, doing their stuff there, kids playing around normal. And they put tents. I started looking over, and I like, this is one of the hills, and they have tents. They start putting tents in all those small little corners, like all those shacks. And I started looking up, and then he noticed that I was one of the community leaders. He noticed that I was looking, and he said, like, why they do that? I'm like, why? Because now the police is using drones. So they see what's coming up, so now they start covering, so they don't know where they're packing, what they're doing, all this stuff. I'm like, dude, that's a cat and mouse game. Like, gonna do this? Okay, I'll do this. And I'm like, this is not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, like, it's damage control, and try to support those social projects and keep inspiring some people. And hopefully, in jiu-jitsu, little by little, people can connect more. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
If Jiu-Jitsu is a tribe, Jiu-Jitsu Tribe is the organization you want to support. But if not, they have Guardian Gym. Guardian Gym is I think is the site. But the Guardian Project, it's another organization in the U.S. who has supported them before they do an incredible job. They go to certain neighborhoods that are tougher too, and sponsoring kids. So there are great organizations out there. We just talked with the We Defy Foundation,
Great organization.
They help with the military,
Yep.
So there are many if you want to help a nonprofit organization related to jiu-jitsu, just go to Google and nonprofit jiu-jitsu organizations. You find someone and help out, even if it's $5. You know what I mean? It's $5 per month. It goes a long way.
I know that's one thing I need to get bigger into is helping with charity and whatnot. So Jiu-Jitsu Tribe definitely is going to be getting some of my business, especially when the next gi order comes out, because like you mentioned, I saw them on your website. I was like, man, that's a fresh gi. I got to get one of those things and help out. So, but hey, Gustavo, thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. This was a phenomenal conversation. I am so thankful that you got to come on and spread the word and message about you and what you're doing and helping people. So thank you so much for that. Let us know what you guys think at home. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. And remember, no oil checks here. Later.
Peace.